Executives from rival companies sat frozen, their confidence drained away because what was revealed that day was not another concept, not a whisper of future promises but a living machine that defied every expectation. In a hall filled with silence, a screen lit up with numbers no one thought possible. 1,000 miles of range, a 5-minute charge time, fireproof, cheap and clean. The air seemed to thicken as reality sank in. This wasn't just progress, it was a disruption delivered without warning. A quiet announcement that told the world everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The figures sounded unreal at first. A car traveling 1,000 miles on a single charge, a battery filling from empty to full in just 5 minutes. These weren't projections or marketing dreams, they were measured, confirmed and displayed for the world to see. For years, lithium had been the ceiling. Every advance came in small steps, 10% here or a faster charge there, but nothing close to this. What made the moment even more striking was how calm the presentation was. No dramatic music, no flashy visuals, just numbers on a screen, each one rewriting the limits of electric power. Industry veterans whispered that it couldn't be right, yet a working prototype was brought forward, validated by independent labs. This wasn't vaporware, it was real, and if real, it meant the entire foundation of electric vehicles had just been pulled out from under the competition. At the core of the breakthrough was a shift in chemistry. Lithium had always carried the weight of modern batteries, but it had limits baked into its design, with each ion only able to move one electron, a tiny packet of energy. Aluminum worked differently, with each ion carrying 3. That meant more charge, more movement, and more power in the same space. The secret wasn't just the metal itself, but how it was paired with a graphene-based cathode, a structure that allowed the aluminum ions to move quickly, almost without friction. The heat that usually builds up inside lithium packs never appeared. There was no swelling, no sudden surges, and no threat of runaway fire. To prove it, the team punished the cells in ways no car battery should survive. They froze them solid, then blasted them with heat. They crushed, pierced, and shorted them out. Nothing caught fire, not even a spark. What emerged wasn't only a better battery. It was a system that felt immune to the old fears, with safety, speed, and strength bound together in one design. What struck observers most was not only what was shown, but what was left unsaid. The word lithium never appeared, not once, as if the old standard had already been erased and was no longer worth mentioning. For companies that had invested billions into lithium supply chains, the silence was louder than any boast. Mining contracts, extraction deals, and factory plans suddenly looked fragile. Years of planning were built around a resource locked to unstable regions of the world. Salt flats in South America, mines in Australia, cobalt from Congo, with every deal carrying risk, politics, and shadows. Aluminum carried none of that baggage. It was everywhere, common, cheap, and already woven into global trade. This choice was not simply a scientific win, but a clean break from the bottlenecks that had defined the electric age. In a single move, it showed that lithium's dominance wasn't permanent. It had been a placeholder, and its time was running out. For decades, gasoline's last defense was convenience, with drivers able to go farther and refill in minutes while electric vehicle owners waited and worried. Range anxiety was oil's shield, the argument it used to stay relevant. But this announcement broke that defense in half. 1,000 miles on one charge meant no daily worries, and a 5-minute recharge meant no waiting at all. Imagine pulling into a station, plugging in, and leaving before your coffee cools. That simple act erases the one advantage combustion engines had left. No matter how efficient, a gas tank cannot compete with a battery that goes farther, charges faster, and never risks a spark. Analysts knew what it meant. Oil demand had always seemed untouchable, but now projections began to fall, with millions of barrels per day potentially vanishing as fleets and families shifted away from pumps. This was not a slow fade, but the first real threat of collapse. The stronghold had finally cracked, and the timing was unforgiving. The shockwaves didn't stop in Tokyo. Within hours, boardrooms in California and Shenzhen were in crisis mode. At one electric vehicle maker, insiders whispered about a project launched overnight, a desperate sprint to explore aluminum cells, with engineers pulled from other divisions and reassigned. The urgency was clear. If these claims held, the industry leader's crown was in danger. Lithium packs often made up nearly half the price of the vehicle, and even with subsidies and scaling, they struggled to break below $100 per kilowatt hour. Aluminum changes that equation entirely. The metal is abundant, mined in dozens of countries, and already part of the global industry, with no need for rare additives or expensive coatings. The new process stripped away many of the hidden costs that haunted lithium, with analysts estimating production could fall under $80 per kilowatt-hour within a few years. That shift opens the door to affordable electric cars for the average buyer. Imagine a family sedan priced under $25,000 with a range that dwarfs even luxury electric vehicles and with minimal degradation, as the battery could last decades without replacement. Suddenly, owning an electric car isn't a sacrifice, it's the obvious practical choice for nearly everyone. The promise of electric cars was always wrapped in the language of progress, clean energy and green futures, but behind the curtain the story was messier. Lithium carried scars, with desert lakes drained, fragile ecosystems cracked, and communities left without water. In one region, certain mines revealed something darker, with children working under dangerous conditions and families living in toxic dust, where profits could fund conflict. Every electric vehicle came with that hidden price, buried under its shining surface. Aluminum carried none of that burden. It was plentiful, mined in over 60 countries, and already tied into the world's trade routes. More importantly, it could be recycled with astonishing efficiency, with more than 90% of the material recoverable again and again, without a collapse in quality. Each cycle costs little energy and produces almost no waste. For the first time, battery chemistry matched performance with ethics. This new material's implications unfolded in layers, each more profound than the last. Geopolitical strategists pored over maps, but now their fingers traced the routes of bauxite shipments and aluminum smelters instead of contested lithium salars. Long-standing alliances, built on the precarious stability of resource-rich regions, began to seem like relics. A new calculus of power emerged, one based on industrial refinement and electrochemical innovation, rather than geological fortune. Nations with deep manufacturing expertise and robust recycling infrastructures found themselves holding a new kind of ace. The economic tremor became a quake. Stock markets, sensitive to the scent of obsolescence, reacted with violent swings. Shares in mining giants dedicated to lithium extraction plummeted, while companies specializing in advanced materials and graphene production saw unprecedented surges. Venture capital, that restless river of money, abruptly changed course, flooding into startups promising novel battery architectures or efficient aluminum recycling methods. A wave of creative destruction was unleashed, threatening to wash away corporate titans and elevate unknown challengers in its wake. The vision stretched beyond cars, presenting a modular energy block small enough to power a home yet strong enough to support entire microgrids, safe, stackable, and resistant to fire. These cells could stabilize renewables in ways lithium never could, allowing communities powered by solar and wind to store energy without fear of degradation or breakdown. The implications reached further still, with aviation firms beginning to eye aluminum ions as a doorway to electric flight, militaries testing it for drones and field equipment, and consumer companies imagining phones charging in seconds or laptops lasting weeks. What began as a shift in the auto industry had become something larger. It wasn't only about vehicles anymore, but about rewriting the very map of energy itself. Cleaner, safer, and unchained from the compromises of the past. What happened in that quiet hall was more than a product reveal. It was a turning point, a signal that the rules had changed. For decades, the future seemed locked to lithium, with oil still clinging to power. Then, in minutes, another path was shown. Faster, safer, and cleaner. Competitors were left chasing shadows, investors unsettled, and governments rethinking their plans. The old world ran on fire and fuel. The new one may run on aluminum, silent and unshakable. And as the industry scrambles, one truth is clear. The fuse has been lit, and the count